first mock draft. It's obviously going to be a little bit different. It's a little bit early in June still for everything to fall into place, but we'll see what we got with some ADPs here, and I'm excited to get going, man.
Yeah, we were talking before we even just hit record, and got to a point where we were just like, all right, we can talk about all this as we get started. But we've got a mock draft on the books. We are picking. Mike is picking from pick 3. I'm picking at pick 8 in a 12-team PPR league. Again, this is a mock draft on Sleeper, and I'll pull it up on screen. And basically, roster construction is quarterback, 2 running backs, 3 wide receiver, tight end, flex, and then 4 benches for a lovely 12-round draft. And Mike, with that being said, I'm going to hit start, but I want you to give your thoughts quickly on what the sleeper ADP looks like currently, because you had some definite questions here.
Oh, yeah. We started talking right before we hit record, like you said, and let's just get this on camera here. So the first thing that stands out to me, I'm looking at the first round. Eckler, great. RB1 last year. Obviously, whatever's going on with the contract dispute, I feel like will work itself out in a month. Jefferson makes a ton of sense, as we were talking about. We're definitely going to see him in the top 3 this year. What surprises me is Jamar Chase. Necessarily, I love Jamar Chase this year. I think the numbers are going to be very consistent with what you saw last year, but I'm not taking Jamar Chase over Cooper Kupp. Cooper Kupp is still my guy. You know, I think the Rams have seen a lot of where they've been through a lot, I'd say, over the past year with the Stafford injury and kind of just tanking the season for the most part. But in this pick, it's very clear to me I am not going anyone other than Travis Kelce at 3 here. That's going to be my pick. I think, as we were saying before the video here, Jefferson and Kelce, I think, are solidified in that top 3 position this year. I don't think that's going to change at all. I don't think there's anything that can change there. So, yeah, I'm going to take Kelce at the 3rd spot there. But yeah, that was my first surprise there. Jamar Chase over Cooper Kupp. I can't really get my head around. But yeah, here we go down the line. What are you thinking at 8 here?
Yeah, well, before I go into my pick here, I wanted to touch. Yeah, I think what I see, seeing the sleeper ADP and what it is, realistically, first time being the sleeper draft system this season so far, and seeing Jefferson ranked number 1, and then Eckler, and then Chase, and then Kelce. I told Mike, I was like, I picture as we get to late July that it's going to wind up being Jefferson, Chase, and Kelce at 1, 2, 3 as drafts start to take place and as the summer goes on. And I think that's because people see those 3 specifically as like cemented in as being top fantasy options. And right. I think it's a wide receiver year. And I think you see that, we're 7 picks in and 4 wide receivers off the board, which is a little heavier than it has been. And it's a wide receiver heavy year. And I'm sitting here pick 8, and I'm not loving the wide receivers that are currently sitting there. I don't have too much confidence in Bijan, at least not in the first round personally. And I want the electric Saquon Barkley.
It's a good one. Yeah, we were just talking about it as well. Even with the first few picks, as you said, that you see Jamar Chase in that top 3. For me, just going back on what I was saying with Cooper Kupp, the man had an average per game of 22.4 points, which would put him right behind Justin Jefferson last year. He finished number 2 in points per game. So yeah, with the injury and him being out, it makes sense that he's going to fall a little bit in the ADP. I feel like that'll change a little bit. I feel like if anything, him and Chase and even Tyreek Hill, like he did, would be going right there. But yeah, going back to your first round pick, that is probably what I'm leaning towards too. Not that I'm scared of Bijan, but I would definitely look for a running back on a better football team, if that makes sense, than the Atlanta Falcons. We saw the volume that Patterson got at the beginning of the year, and then even Tyler Algier towards the end of the year, if I pronounced that right. And here we go again, 2023, me mispronouncing
Yep.
names. Um,
Algier.
Algier, there you go. So yeah, I really do like the volume that Atlanta gives their running backs, but yeah, I'm going with Barkley there, and I also feel the same way with the wide receivers that were there. If I was going a wide receiver, I'd definitely be looking at CeeDee Lamb or Adams there.
Yeah.
Um,
Yep.
and that was definitely somebody that I was hoping slides, but obviously we're doing this for the first time here. The ADPs have them going end of first round. So now you got an
Yeah.
interesting pick. Some of those wide receivers that you might see go late first round kind of snuck into the second there. What are you thinking here?
Yeah. Oh man, I was hoping Adams would make it, but I'm gonna take another receiver that I think has a very solid chance at taking being a wide receiver or the wide receiver one, and that is Detroit's very own Amon-Ra St. Brown. I think the Detroit offense is primed for another huge season, and Amon-Ra is just set up in, I don't want to say the perfect position, but he's set up for a huge year. And give me Amon-Ra. I think this is a year that potentially elevates him into that Tyreek Hill, Cooper Kupp, Stephon Diggs like range that we currently see. I feel like he's still kind of being underrated, and I'd say that as he's the five, six, seven, eight, ninth wide receiver off the board. But I feel like there's potential behind him, and we can see that this year.
Yeah, definitely. I love the pick too. I think Amon Ra for what he did last year was just unbelievable. I think last year he really did have an ADP towards like the third, fourth round, if I'm not mistaken, and
Yeah, that
obviously
sounds right.
crushed it. Um, so yeah, Amon Ra too. I mean, he's got 6 weeks now without Jameson because of the suspension. I believe he got suspended. Is that
Yeah,
correct?
he's Jamison Williams is out 6 weeks, so we've got 6 weeks of just Amon Ra as wide receiver one.
Right. And was that for gambling? Am I
Gambling in the team premises.
Ah, gambling, man. And you know what's funny? As we say this today, June 15th, there was actually something I saw passed today that allows players to now make sports gambling bets on Pro Bowl games, if I'm not mistaken. I saw that got passed today, which was pretty
Interesting.
interesting. Or rather, I believe it got passed. I'll get back to you later in the video on that. But I just saw that today that it got approved, I believe, just for the Pro Bowl games, if I'm not mistaken.
Interesting.
So
Probably
yeah,
because they want it in Vegas. They want you to be allowed to do your thing there. But all right.
exactly.
Either way, back to the draft. You're on the board. You took Kelsey as your first pick. Now you're back at the 210. You saw the second quarterback go off the board. We didn't even mention Mahomes being drafted early
Yeah.
second, which I think, I mean, get your guy, but I still feel like second round for any quarterback is still insane.
Yeah, I have always been a wait on quarterback type of guy. It's worked out for me most years. Some years it hasn't. I think the earliest that we've seen, probably over the past 3 seasons, you see Mahomes really sneak into that third round ADP range.
Yeah.
To see him and Allen go back to back, it's not surprising. I think more leagues are going to gravitate towards that. What's really funny is you saw with those two last year, you saw Justin Herbert bunched in there as well. And
Yeah.
obviously last year with a down season a little bit, I'm surprised to see, or I'm curious to see what happens with his ADP now and see where he goes. But yeah, this pick right here, very similar to what you said, Kyle. Another wide receiver that I think has top 5 potential easily, and that's going to be Garrett Wilson. I'm going to take him. Obviously, with Aaron Rodgers going there, the guy looks healthy. He put up numbers last year, and it was unbelievable what he did on a team that even when Brees Hall went down, continued to strive. Garrett Wilson, he averaged 12.4 points a game last year, finished as wide receiver 22. Funny enough, Cooper Kupp played how many games? And Cooper Kupp finished wide receiver 21. And Cooper Kupp, I believe, missed 7 games last year, which is really crazy to think about. But Yeah, QB upgrade, man. Garrett Wilson has a high chance to be in that top five. For him going on this board as, let's see here, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11th receiver off the board. I feel like he's going to crush that ADP. I feel like that's almost guaranteed that he's going to finish in the top 10 this year. So that's a really easy pick for me there. Now on the turn, kind of hurts as well. I was looking at someone such as Pollard
Yeah, I was going to
or
say you
Brees
got
Hall.
three running backs go, and you are looking for one. I know how you draft. You like to
Yep,
have one at least after these first 3 rounds.
exactly. Yep. And even last year in our league that we're in, our competitive league, I obviously went 2 running backs in the first 3 rounds there. I had the 12th pick last year. But yeah, running back here is 100% on my mind. And I am going to actually go with Ramondre Stevenson at this
Great
pick here.
pick. Great
I
pick.
love the pick. Ramondre, I think, is set up for a huge role this year, even with Damian Harris eating into his role a little bit for the first few weeks of the season last year. He still ended up as RB9, averaging 14.7 points a game. That's a dude that I'm going to want on my team. You know, even with the rumors going around that you could possibly see D Hop over there. And I believe they signed Juju. Not that that's going to really revolutionize the offense, but I think it's headed in the right direction. And I know for a fact that they want Ramondre at the helm. So I really love his volume. I love what he was doing this year. And for my first 3 picks, I think these are picks that, with Kelsey at the helm, Garrett Wilson that has a top 5 ceiling, and even Ramondre that I believe has a ceiling of a top 10 running back again, somewhere in that range. I really love those first 3 picks, so I'm pretty happy here.
Yep. And then we saw QB3 off the board, Jalen Hurts,
QB3. Mm-hmm.
and then Higgins, Olave, ETN, and now I'm up, and I'm eyeing a guy who finished as the wide receiver 9 last year and could very well do it again. And for my wide receiver 2, I'm happy with that. With Devontae Smith, I
Mm.
I don't see. I don't know. It's hard to see him fail. He's too athletic, too six. He just looks too good in the wide receiver role, um, and kind of passes my eye test for to have him as a wide receiver too, especially after the guys. Debo's the other one I was considering, but like Metcalf, Keenan Allen catches a bunch, or like Amari Cooper and DeAndre Hopkins, who's still not on a team. I felt more I guess, safe with Devontae Smith after. I mean, we've seen him play with Jalen Hurts already, and just looks phenomenal. And I know you have your Philadelphia Eagles thoughts, but I feel like you can at least agree that Devontae Smith looks good as a receiver.
Yeah, amazing. And it hurts to say, but it's really funny to look at our third round here. I went with Ramondre, and you go with Smith, who last year had ADPs way past the sixth,
Yep.
7th round.
Yep.
And it kind of hurts your soul a little bit that you got to take him earlier this year. But there's going to be a few other guys coming up in these next few rounds that are going to replace their roles, I think. And we'll get to that here. But yeah, I love the pick. I was also looking at Metcalf, like you said there, and I love his output last year. But they just added another receiver, and I think he's going to be a part of the mix this year a little bit. So I'm interested to see, can Geno keep up the magic for a second year in a row? I don't think that it was just a coincidence that he did that. I think it was definitely earned, and I think Geno is a dog. So we'll see. Yeah, Smith right there, I think without a doubt is the pick. For what he did last year, the team is just looking on the up and up. Obviously, the NFC is just getting weaker and weaker. So yeah, I love the pick there.
Yep. And then for my second pick, I hate to say I was eyeing 2 guys and they were both taken. I was looking at Jahmyr Gibbs and Joe Mixon. I think Gibbs personally has a huge potential this season as the Lions are starting running back. And Joe Mixon, I mean, what was he last year? The RB. I should have
Let's
had that.
see. Mixon was
RB 12. Go and you can get that in the 4th round. Felt pretty solid to me, but I
Mhm.
didn't work out. So I am switching things up, and I'm going to take a guy that I have loved for years. Happy he's back,
Mm,
Calvin Ridley.
I love that.
As my wide receiver 3 in a 3 wide receiver league, to have Amon-Ra, Devontae Smith, and then take the small gamble of Calvin Ridley in a Jacksonville offense that I think is going to be insane this year. I'm all in. Give me Ridley, and it's weird to say, but I kind of rank Ridley and I'm blanking on his name.
Kirk.
And Christian Kirk. I personally rank them like back to back. I think they're both in for huge season, and I
Mhm.
don't think you could go wrong picking either one of them. But I like what Ridley's got going.
Yeah, that was going to be my next point as well. If you go down the receivers here, I actually don't see Christian Kirk for a little bit. Another surprise that we've run into. And obviously, like we just got into mocking, and obviously it's still too early to make anything definitive. But yeah, look at the numbers there, man. I
Wide
mean,
receiver 11 last year, and
mhm,
could potentially be he has the shot to be still the wide receiver 1 in this offense, and if
mhm.
not, it just has more open opportunities with Ridley on the other side.
Yeah, absolutely. If anything, it's going to open up stuff for him. It just comes down to volume at the end of the day. Now, I think without a doubt, I think Ridley is obviously the more talented receiver, but both of these guys are super talented, and the money that they're both getting speaks for
Yep.
itself. So,
Yep.
yeah, that's going to be kind of maybe a little bit preseason to see who's getting the volume, who's really the true target there. And even then, it's camp news, which you can't always trust. But yeah, absolutely great pick, and I agree with you. If Ridley's going in the 4th, then Kirk should definitely be going no later than the 5th.
Yep.
Um, and now I'm on the board, so you know what? Kirk is definitely on my radar, but
Yeah,
at
but
this,
this is where you play the ADP game, and you're just like, I don't have to
oh,
worry about him. I don't have to draft him now. You can sit and be like, I'll take him. I'll take him early, but not this early.
absolutely, yeah. And if we go down the wide receivers there, you got a good 10 plus wide
Yeah.
receivers ahead of Kirk right now. This is like something that you'll definitely, as a fantasy player, work into your strategy. Obviously, guys are going to reach for some guys, but this is a guy you could definitely play with where people, if Ridley does go this early, he's going to be known as the head guy, and people may back off a little bit on the number 2 receiver on that team. Um, which is kind of funny because it's the same thing that you just did with AJ
Yep.
Brown and Devonta Smith.
And even
Kind of
before with T. Higgins and Jamar Chase, like
there you go.
consistently, or Jalen Waddle and Tyreek Hill, you can have fantastic wide receiver 2s on your fantasy team. It's
Exactly.
just about wanting it.
Absolutely. Don't let a wide receiver 2 on an NFL team scare you from taking him early. Even myself last year, how I drafted T. Higgins was my wide receiver 1, and he's a wide receiver 2 on his team. Don't be afraid of that. Obviously, it's a great strategy, and you can definitely work off of it. But yeah, in this case, Kirk's a little bit far down my list there, so I'm going to let that go for now. But yeah, I'm back on the clock here, and I've got a few choices. No one at this point looking at the board is really standing out to me too much. I'm kind of just feeling out the board here as I look around. I'm seeing some tight ends there. I'm not really interested in a tight end at this point. I think there's going to be a few
You've already
sleeper
got a tight
ones.
end too. Don't forget.
Oh, that is true too. Yeah, I'm not even looking at tight end with this draft, but yeah, on the overall board, I see them there. I also see Justin Fields and Justin Herbert creeping there, and that's probably, according to this draft, if you got quarterbacks going in the 2nd round, that next tier of quarterbacks I can see going in the 4th here. But
Yeah.
let's see. I'm gonna pivot here. Obviously, like we mentioned, we're doing this one of our first few mocks of the year. And I'm looking at it here. You know what? I'm going to pivot and this one has me stumped here. I'm going wide receiver. And you know what? I think I'm going to go with Amari Cooper here.
Good
Two
pick.
things on that. I think last year, Amari Cooper obviously put up great numbers with Brissett and obviously had Deshaun Watson come in not at 100%, not in tune with the offense. We clearly saw that it looked like even Deshaun just was not ready to step back in yet at 100%. So I'm excited to see what a little bit of preparation behind Watson brings out of Cooper this year. I mean, Cooper finished as wide receiver 10 last year, averaging 15 points a game. So to get him in the fourth round in a potentially upgraded offense sounds really good to me. So Cooper, I think, is really a steal. I could even see him maybe being bumped up a little bit in terms of ADP as we go along here. Um, but yeah, back on the clock now. I got two receivers, and obviously our lineup consists of two running backs, three receivers. I got my anchor for my team at tight end. So at this point, it kind of depends on what type of drafter you are. As I mentioned, Justin Fields and Herbert, that next tier of quarterbacks is now going. That's probably the end of that tier for me. The guys
Yeah.
on the board right now aren't really standing out to me. It's kind of screaming, wait, wait, wait. So I'm not going to jump on a QB here. I'm going to go back to a running back here. And here's a few things that to keep in mind. First off, you got Alvin Kamara a little bit too low for comfort on this list. I think Alvin Kamara definitely should not be making it out of the fourth round. I'm assuming that is going to change, barring if he gets suspended or not. Obviously,
Yeah.
that news is going to have a ton of impact on what's going on there. But guys like Alvin Kamara, obviously, you got teamless Dalvin Cook right now. These are all guys that are going to be in the mix. So when this fifth round rolls around in the draft, maybe some of those running backs go, and maybe someone like Herbert falls. And Herbert would be very interesting in the fifth round there. But running back wise here, if we're saying that Dalvin Cook is not on a team, obviously we're just going to let the computer pick Dalvin Cook for now. If Dalvin Cook does get drafted, especially to Miami, I would probably be looking at him in the second round. What about you, Kyle? What are your thoughts on that?
In Miami, I feel like I'd put him in like the third-ish round. I think I'd still prefer guys like Gibbs or an ETN, guys that I mean, we still haven't seen Gibbs play, but I feel like that range or between those two guys or around those two guys is kind of where I'd sandwich a Dalvin Cook in Miami, just
Mhm.
because there's a lot of mouths to feed. I think it would fall into a similar fate of like a Joe Mixon, where it's just like
Mhm.
he's a very talented back, but there's a passing offense that still needs to get a lot of yardage. Um,
Exactly.
so I
Exactly.
think if that's the Miami, if he goes to Miami, that's off the top of my head probably where I'd potentially put him.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's what I would be thinking too. Most likely, where I'm talking about in the second round would be probably late second, early third,
Yep.
something like that. And that's if it's Miami. That's obviously, I would think, the best spot for him at this point. Um, but yeah, I am going to make my pick here, and I'm actually going to go with DeAndre Swift. I do have a thing against Eagles players, but I do love
You
DeAndre
love
Swift.
Swift.
I love Swift. And I think for Miles Sanders last year to finish as the RB13, putting up 13.3 points a game, I think Swift is just an increase to that. Now, I know they have a lot of guys in the mix, but I think for Swift to come in as an outstandingly better running back than Miles Sanders, all I could see is it going up from here. You're talking about the most dominant team in the NFC. Great schedule. Obviously, I'm assuming that they're going to have a great record. They're going to be ahead in a lot of games. I see a lot of volume for Swift this year, and I just see him outdoing what Sanders did last year. So for a running back like that to fall to the fifth too, I know that he'll definitely be bumped up a little bit, but I feel like that's a nice steal there.
Yeah, Swift, he's going to be involved. It's just about, which stinks, but about how many games he plays. But who
Mhm.
knows? Maybe he plays healthy. Maybe he's not used as like the absolute workhorse back. And in this offense, it's hard to envision that.
Right, right.
But maybe that's the key to his longevity is his I guess less usage and just a continued just continued use. So I'm rooting for him, but great pick.
Yeah, and then there you go. You see Dalvin Cook teamless go in the fifth round there. Obviously, that'll throw some stuff in the mix there. But yeah, Kyle on the clock here. 3 receivers. What are you
On the
looking at
clock,
here?
I'm looking at two guys, but I'm gonna take the running back I like the most, Alexander Madison.
Mm,
I mean, you talked about Dalvin Cook,
RB1.
and now Madison finds himself as the RB1 in his offense, and we've seen what he has played as when it's his team, when Dalvin was hurt or missing games. Madison stepped in as if like the Vikings missed 0 beats, and Madison looks good. And now that it's his backfield, I'm sure he won't have full 100% control over it, but uh, still a lot of fantasy points to be scored, especially in that Minnesota offense. And for my RB2 in the fifth round, I like it.
Oh yeah. And that's all ties into the strategy as well. Obviously, if you were going to go running back earlier there, then yeah, you probably pass on Madison in a 2 running back league. But
Yeah,
for you to go a power 3 wide receivers there, that you all expect to potentially be in the top 20 guaranteed. I mean, and Madison as an RB2, that's just icing on the cake there. That's beautiful
yeah.
to not have to worry about that RB2 and knowing that you have a now starter in
Yeah.
Madison. So
And now I'm back on the clock. Saw two tight ends go, and Goddard and Pitts. And the guy I was hoping would fall back to me made it. And I have best ball stuck in my brain, but I'm stacking him. Trevor Lawrence.
oh, there we go.
I mean, I mentioned it before. I really like what Jacksonville looks like as an offense this season, and to get two pieces of that and to kind of really make that statement of I'm committed. I like how their potential this season and how that looks. Give me Trevor Lawrence and Calvin Ridley and what that offense could potentially look like.
Yeah, no, I absolutely love that stack. That's a team too that I think is just at like last year. You kind of just saw the start of
Yep.
how good they're going to be. That's going to be a really, really good football team this year. A potential sleeper team to do some damage later on in the playoffs this year. So yeah, I absolutely love that. That team right now. I got to say, I'm very jealous of that team. The way your team looks right now, that is your classic like fill your lineup kind of lineup. Like all you need now is a tight end and a flex, obviously, and you're good to
Yeah,
go. But yeah, that is one of those lineups that you definitely feel great about on draft day right there.
absolutely. I'm feeling
Uh,
good.
but yeah, you know what? You did inspire me. I'm gonna go ahead and take a
Let's
quarterback
do it.
too, and I'm also gonna stack mine. I'm gonna go with not the Rodgers stack, but I'm going with the Deshaun Watson stack.
Yeah.
Like I said, I do have a lot of faith in him. I think that just him coming in last year was a really bad indication of what he's going to be on this team, and I think we truly do see his true form this year. So I really love him, especially with the running threat. I'm going to take Deshaun. I think with Kareem not being there, maybe this team evolves a little bit. Maybe they get a little bit more pass hungry, throughout the season. So I really like Deshaun there. I think I'm going to solidify that. And on the turnaround now, man,
He's there. He's right there, Mike.
I was looking at Marquise Brown. I'm
He's
not going to
staring
lie,
right at you.
staring right at me. I actually don't know who you're talking about here. Who are you talking about?
Christian Kirk.
Oh, okay.
You
He
forgot
is on the
about him
clock
already.
there. Yeah, you know what? I mean, give me Christian Kirk here. That's kind of a no-brainer. Um, yeah, that's something I'm not even going to think about. There are actually some pretty attractive names there that caught my eye, like wide receiver wise. But yeah, that's actually a little bit crazy that he did fall that far.
Yeah, in the
Wow.
seventh, and we were talking about him in the fourth.
Yeah, potentially going right behind Ridley, and I'm sure that will change.
Yeah,
Um,
for sure.
but yeah, that's a steal right there. Yeah, that's a no-brainer. Even Kamara too in the seventh round, I still think is ridiculous.
Yeah,
Kamara did have a really, really rough start to last season. Um, but for where he finished as running back 17 last year, even if he does stay in that RB2 range, seventh round for a top 24 running back, I mean, Give me that all day. That's beautiful.
Yeah. I'm on the clock again. Sitting here, and I know my pick. It's maybe not too obvious, but I like how you mentioned it, how these wide receivers are looking. And wide receiver 12 last year, a receiver who is consistently undervalued every single year and
Every
overperforms,
year.
Tyler Lockett.
Mm-hmm.
He is let me pull him up. Let's see it. Every year he is let's see the history. Last year he was wide receiver 13, year before 15, year before 8, year before 13. And I'm telling you, I think every year he's been drafted in round 7 or later.
Yeah.
For my flex, give me that. I will take that every season, and I will probably have quite a bit of Tyler Lockett in my flex or wide receiver 3 because he's the definition of late round value.
Yeah, that's another great pick, man. I feel like we said, we were gonna run into some surprises this draft, and there's definitely some guys that should not be going this late. And I know it's gonna change, but wow, I wish this was August right now. I would take this team and run.
Yep, me too. Back on the clock, and I need a position still that apparently nobody else on the league does except for pick 12. Oh, and 7 and 6. Never mind. I'm blind. But again, committed to this offense, and I'm going to prove it. Evan Ingram.
Love it.
What was he last year? The wide receiver 5, and I'm getting him as the wide receiver 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Wide receiver 10? Sure. I will take
Tight
that.
end, but
Or
yes.
tight end 10. Yeah. I mean, the offense is going to improve. He'll probably see the same. He's probably not going to improve personally just because the targets. I mean, you add Calvin Ridley. It's not like they're going to be passing 110 more times, but Ingram is going to still see a role in this offense. He's not going to disappear. He's athletic. He's finally in an offense that is good as compared to New York, where he was stuck forever. And he looked well last year, and the offense I think is going to improve. So give me Ingram as my starting tight end.
Yeah, and he's one of the last few tight ends from last year that averaged more than 10 points a game. That was definitely one of the tight ends that I was talking about. That when my pick came around in the 4th, 5th round, I didn't really like that tier of tight ends because I knew guys like Evan Ingram were down there. Guys like Pat Fryermuth were down there. And at this point, I think after Ingram, there's no tight ends that I would want to jump on at this point. At this point, I'm not looking at a tight end until past round 10. No one that really comes to mind or pops out to me here. So I'm going to pivot again. I got 2 running backs, 3 receivers, quarterback, tight end. I am going to look at either a running back or a receiver here. And there are a few guys that I really like. More guys to mention too from last round. Rachaad White in the 7th round is one of those eye-popping backs to me this year. All alone in Tampa Bay now, has proven that he can be a receiving back, and that team is going to be awful this year. It's going to be awful. I expect him to definitely continue his pace in the passing game next year. And definitely just continue to shine in that offense as the number 1 guy, especially in garbage time this year, which I am predicting it's going to be a bad team. So, yeah, I absolutely would have taken Rachaad White there if Christian Kirk magically didn't fall to round 7. But, yeah, let's pivot here. I got 2 running backs. I think I'm going to add another one here. And it really is a tough decision. I'm looking at this running back list here, and I see a ton of guys that are all in the same tier. You know what? I think I lied. I think I'm going to pivot to receiver here. There's actually a guy that really does stand out to me. And you know what? This one is kind of a shot in the dark, but to get this guy in the 8th round, knowing that he is definitely going to be involved and he's a big name and he's getting paid that cash, just like Christian Kirk was last year, give me OBJ in the 8th round. I'm going to
Oh,
take OBJ, potential, obviously, wide receiver one on the football team. And I think he definitely has a very high ceiling this year as long as he could stay healthy. Now, that's going to be one of those things that I'm definitely going to have to see some more stuff on him. He looks
yeah.
great right now in your Twitter clips and your YouTube clips and stuff like that. So he looks great. I want to see how he progresses throughout the offseason here. Can he stay healthy throughout it? Is the hype going to be the same once it goes into the year? But this is a guy that I really did. I was looking at my list here and I was thinking running back, but I saw him and I did not want to pass on a wide receiver one on a potential top 5 offense in the league in terms of scoring, which it basically has been since Lamar has joined the team. So I love that pick there. And now I'm back on the clock again. And guys like Jamal Williams, Brian Robinson, AJ Dillon, they're all in kind of that same tier for me. And that's why I kind of wasn't leaning too heavily towards running back at that pick. Um, this is a hard one. This is one of those picks that obviously later on in the year is going to feel better to me in terms of what happens. But at this point, um, I think it's pretty clear. I am going to jump on a guy that I guarantee everybody will raise their eyebrows at, but I guarantee you in August, come August, this guy will be bumping up into that 7th, 8th round range. I'm actually going to draft my 3rd running back here, and
Ooh,
I'm going to take Roshan Johnson,
nice.
rookie running back, Chicago Bears. This is a dude that I feel like a lot of analysts in general, and just the fantasy community, has really slept on. This is a dude that if he did not play at Texas last year, would have been a starter on almost any other football team in America in college football. He got overshadowed, obviously, by Bijan, and this dude is an animal, absolute animal, the way he runs the football. And his only competition is little Khalil Herbert, who has proven himself to be pretty effective, but this is a Chicago's Bear team that now just added DJ Moore. I think that they are on the up and up offensively. Obviously, the biggest concern for me is most likely the play calling. But this is a running back that I guarantee you, marking it down on June 15th, will be the starter of that football team at some point in the season.
All
Talent
right.
wise, I think it's not even close with him and Khalil Herbert. I think this dude is going to be a star compared to Khalil Herbert. So obviously, going into training camp, it's most likely even what they're saying now, a 1A, 1B situation. But I feel like that is going to change, and that's somebody that I'm keeping my eye on. And for the most part, if I didn't take him there, he probably goes 10th, 11th round, maybe later. But I think he's going to end up right where I took him there. So I love that pick.
You mentioned he's stealing the spot, but I kind of feel the opposite, and I am a Khalil Herbert
Oh,
fan.
okay.
Um, and this is one of those teams that even if there is a 1A, 1B situation, they're going to run the ball a lot. We saw it. I mean, we saw it a lot early in the season for the Bears until Justin Fields really took over in the passing game. But even then, I feel like this team wanted to run still. And I think Herbert, or not Herbert, not even Hurts. I think Fields allows that to happen for Herbert and for Roshan Johnson. So as much as I like Herbert, I also really like Johnson. Basically, I like the Bears rushing attack this coming season. So this isn't a
Yeah.
knock against Johnson. This is me liking Herbert, and for my RB3 in the 9th round, I feel like Herbert and Johnson are going to wind up being drafted back to back.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think when it comes around, unless anything drastically gets put on paper, like Roshan is the starter, I think Khalil Herbert is going to go before
Mm-hmm.
Roshan. But that's one of those situations where, like you said, you feel the opposite. I kind of feel like if Herbert is the starter, like the 1A compared to Johnson as the 1B, I feel like that's going to be a swap, but maybe later on in the season. So I
Yeah.
definitely believe that Herbert is the pick there. You're going to take him over Roshan when it comes down to it. But Yeah, that's more of a reach pick on my end, but
You wanted
I
your
like where
guy.
your head is. The guy's gonna get points. He's gonna see volume. It's not like he's a bum. So I like what you said there. I agree with you.
All right, and then I'm gonna go. I'm gonna flip flop another one of your picks that you just made. In
Ooh,
my potential wide receiver one in this offense, and that's Zay
ooh,
Flowers.
there you
I
go.
think Flowers has the talent to be that, to be the wide receiver one in this
Hmm.
Ravens offense. I still, it's been years, and I'm still not convinced Beckham is a fantasy starter in that sense. I think he's a fantastic receiver, but not super fantasy relevant. So I mean, he's my wide receiver five, and at that point is when I feel very comfortable kind of taking shots on guys like Zay Flowers. And for that, I'm taking Flowers, especially because I believe that he could be kind of a, I guess, sort of an instant impact on this Ravens team.
Yeah, absolutely. Based on how it's looking right now, you still got Rashad Bateman there as well. But this is a guy that they drafted for a reason to come in
Yep.
right away and make an impact. And it kind of reminds me of when the Ravens went out and added Marquise Brown. Marquise Brown's rookie season saw 71 targets. He caught 46 passes, 500 yards, 7 touchdowns. And if that's a receiver that you're grabbing this late in a draft, that is gold. That's something that you look for. This is one of those sleeper picks that we were talking about there. Yep, and as we see it on the screen here, like fantastic numbers. Does it actually show what wide receiver he finished that year? His
That
rookie
year he
season?
was wide receiver 46 in PPR.
Okay. Yeah, so
Best
right
year was
outside of
21
that
and
wide
22.
receiver three range, wide receiver four, which makes him a perfect flex, and he's being drafted this late in a draft in the 10th round. That's a beautiful pick. If he comes in like they said he is, and obviously the film looks great on Zay Flowers, very shifty, very elusive, has great hands. I think with Lamar, if Odell at that point is not that guy that could stay healthy, be consistent, um, both on and off the field, like no issues. I think Zay Flowers is going to be that guy. And I love Bateman, but I think that they drafted him for a reason. So, yeah, I agree with you. He's going to have an impact right away. And 10th round pick, that's great, great value. Um, so, yeah, on the clock. And, Elijah Moore was one of my
Oh,
sleeper wide receivers here. Now, I do have Cooper. So realistically, in a real draft, I probably wouldn't be looking at Moore, but he's one of those late round guys too that I think everybody kind of just wrote him off from last year, and it wasn't his talent; it was really just the situation. And obviously, there was a lot of off the field stuff over there too, as to why he wasn't getting played, even not even like getting routes in a game,
yeah.
so or snaps. So I think that's another guy that's going to fall this year. It's going to be really sneaky as long as his name doesn't get circulated in the news too much during this offseason. That's another great late round target. I feel like tons of talent. I think on a Deshaun Watson offense that's going to go on the up and up. So another guy there. But yeah, back on the clock. Hmm, interesting. I got my tight end, got my four receivers. Like you said, Odell is a little bit of a risk at this point to kind of have as like a solidified flex. So I am going to look at receiver again here, and I got some decisions to make. Um, hmm, you know, if you scroll down the wide receiver list a little bit, you start seeing the Chiefs wide receivers get in the mix. And, we could make a whole video on who the wide receiver one for the Kansas City Chiefs is going to be.
Yeah.
No one really knows. They have so many guys that are kind of all in the same tier. They do things a little bit differently, but that's going to be a conversation for another day. But I think once the off season comes to an end and we get into the early weeks of August, there's going to be one guy that stands out from the rest. Obviously, right now it is Tony, um, but I think it very well could be Rashee Rice, the rookie that they
Yeah.
just drafted. But for now, I'm going to go with the solidified pick in the offense here. And I'm actually going to go with Jacoby Myers, a guy that I really like his situation more so than anything, being maybe the best receiver on the Raiders, behind Adams, obviously, like as that number two role, and no Waller anymore. I feel like he's in a nice position there to do some damage this year. And as we were saying before, like just playing with Devontae Adams in general, like a star receiver like that, is going to open up so much for that number two receiver. And I feel like he was really solid with the Patriots, and I feel like that's a guy that could see a potential breakout this year in terms of his career. So yeah, love that. Moving on here. Let's see. Oh, and you see rookie Dalton Kincaid go in the 10th round too. That was
Yeah.
another question mark for me. What do you think about Kincaid this year? Do you think he's an instant impact? Do you think he's a top 10 tight end?
I it's tricky. I think he definitely I think you're drafting, I mean, think back to the past few years and what you were drafting Dawson Knox for. I think you're getting
Mhm.
exactly that with the I mean, he's more athletic and was drafted to be a useful weapon in this offense. So I'm interested. I think the 10th round is actually a perfect value for him. If you're
Mhm.
drafting your first tight end this late, I think him and Chigo Konkwu were the two guys you're waiting on. At least I am. And it's like you're in the 10th round, you need your tight end. These are two fantastic options. I feel like I mean, I think Kincaid is a guy who is in an offense who's going to be passing, there's going to be yards, and he's going to be on the end of quite a few touchdowns, in my opinion.
Yeah, I love the position for him. Obviously, just on a high-powered offense, and like you said, yeah, Dawson Knox. I'm pretty sure his ADP was. We saw him going anywhere from like the fifth to the seventh round for the past what 2, 3 seasons. So,
Yeah.
yeah, that's a great pick, great value there to kind of look at the past and just look at what the Buffalo tight end in general has done, and then you upgrade the athleticism and overall skill of the position, and you get him 3 rounds later. It's a beautiful pick. It's someone that's
Oh yeah.
definitely on my radar too. But all right, going back here, I am looking at a three running back team heading into the 11th round. I'm going to add some more depth. This is where it gets tricky. And obviously, this early in the season, it's a little bit hard to pick out. You got some interesting names on here, but a lot of 1A, 1B situations. Someone that right now kind of has the backfield to himself is who I'm going to take here, and that's Raheem Mostert. Um, I absolutely love the offense, just the upside that he has on that offense in general. He's not going to be a consistent running back. Obviously, as long as Dalvin Cook doesn't go there, as long as he's the guy, he's going to have some spurts where he does go off. And I believe that he is a really nice running back to have to kind of just play the matchup throughout the year, especially if he is going to be the only guy there and finished as running back 25 last year. I think that's a great depth piece. And obviously, we'll see what happens with Dalvin. But
Yeah, I mean, even if Dalvin signs with Miami, he's not going to sign. I mean, he even said himself he's going to take his time, and that could be late into training camp. And not that you're drafting your teams today or in this month of June. I should hope not. But even if you are, I feel like Mostert in the 11th is fine. It's fantastic because he's going to have an early role potentially, and just the way that Miami runs their offense, I feel like they are a system that just uses multiple running backs and just rotates, fresh legs consistently. And for that, I feel like you could have any Miami running back in this late of the round to feel confident about it. And then I'm on the clock, and I think I also just have three running backs, and unfortunately, I feel very comfortable with that because I'm looking at a deep list of wide receivers that I feel are still a lot of wide receiver ones on that offense, at least. And I'm going to go with the one that I confidently think is the wide receiver one still on that offense. That's Nico Collins for the Houston Texans. I think they added Robert Woods, who I still don't think has been drafted. Has he?
I have not
No,
seen
he
him.
is
No.
not. He
Hmm.
has not been drafted. So that again, an offense, there's going to be fantasy points scored. Nico Collins was a startable wide receiver last year in fantasy, and I see him having the same role in this offense coming up. And for that, I'm taking him.
Yeah, and Houston too. Just a quick point. It's really funny. At the board right now, there's two teams that you don't see a lot of players taken from through 11 rounds, and that's Houston and Carolina.
Yep,
The
Carolina
running
is the other
backs
one.
went on both of those teams, and the wide receivers is kind of a huge question mark on those teams. So obviously, paying attention in the offseason, and just going off of overall skill, if you're able to actually pick out the wide receiver one on football teams that are going to potentially be really bad with young QBs, I mean,
Yep.
that's huge upside there. So if Nico Collins is the guy, which I believe and I am on board with you, I think he is going to be in
Yeah.
Houston. That's a potential great value pick outside of the first 10 rounds. That's beautiful.
And the next guy is another. Put him on a team with the rookie quarterback, see what happens. This is my shot in the dark wide receiver one pick, and it could be one of three that are currently still available. And I'm taking my personal choice as the wide receiver one for the Carolina Panthers, who I think will be DJ Chark.
Ooh, I like that.
Uh, I mean we see who's up here. It's Jonathan Mingo, and I think Adam Thielen was just taken after my round 11 pick, and it's kind of between. I mean, it's those three, and there's still everybody's darling Laviska Shenault and Terrace Marshall, but I feel like Chark being just 26 still could still be the guy, the wide receiver one in an offense that is basically getting a fresh start. So there's no committed wide receiver one in this offense. And give me
Right.
Chark. I personally think he's the guy. But who knows? We could see a bunch of reports saying it's any other one of those dudes.
Right, and that's kind of another thing. Like that's why paying attention in the
Yep.
offseason is so important, especially with the rookie quarterbacks. Like they're gonna fall in love with somebody, and that's
Yep.
gonna be their safety blanket, especially to start the year. In this case, it could be Chark, it could be Thielen, the veteran, it could be Mingo, the rookie. You know,
Yeah.
it's kind of
We've seen
whoever the quarterback falls in love with.
plenty of rookies loving their rookie counterpart at receiver. And my gamble is Chark, but in the 12th round as my sixth wide receiver, I feel like I'm not putting too much into that bet.
Yeah. No, I absolutely love the pick there. It's another shot in the dark receiver, and why not after round 10 to potentially get a wide receiver one on any football team, let alone a bad one that's going to be chucking the ball around a lot this year? Why not? You know,
Yeah,
and I'm going to kind of go off of that as well for my last pick here. Um, I'm going to go with another sleeper receiver that has the potential to be a wide receiver one,
all right.
playing on the best offense in the NFL with the best quarterback, in my opinion, of all time. And I'm going to go with Rasheed
Ooh,
Rice, the only
nice.
wide receiver on the Kansas City Chiefs, besides MVS, which I am completely ruling out as being any kind of fantasy relevant this year. I'm going to go with Rasheed Rice, the only guy over 6 feet tall. I think he's going to have a huge impact on the outside this year. I think they knew exactly what they were doing taking him. Now, obviously, Tony is going to be the Swiss Army knife. He's going to be running that slot, but we all know that the slot is ran by Travis Kelsey. It's owned and ran by Travis Kelsey. So I'm interested to see how they really make Tony this wide receiver one that everybody says he's going to be. I'm going to call a little bit of BS and take the potential wide receiver one, kind of like you did, taking that wide receiver one past round 10. And I really love Rasheed Rice. He's a talented dude. He's a
Yep.
tall dude. He's going to play the outside, and I think he's going to be what MVS, that what they wanted him to be, that he obviously was not last year. So why not take him on the Kansas City Chiefs, you know?
Beautifully put. Beautifully put. All right, Mike. That
Yeah.
was 12 rounds of
Mhm.
PPR fantasy football mock drafting. Just glancing at the draft board right here. I guess one, what stands out to you the most, and what team?
Hmm.
I guess what pick do you really enjoy?
Yeah. To wrap it up here, There was a lot of surprises. Obviously, if everybody that's watching the video here stood along with us, we ran into surprises along the way as well. There was a bunch, mainly some of the quarterbacks that went really, really early. And I know that leagues are gravitating towards that nowadays, getting that good quarterback. And I think that kind of threw some things in the mix. We saw a lot of wide receivers go early. As we said, we really do think it's going to be a wide receiver heavy first round this year.
Yep.
Um, yeah, I would say that's probably my biggest surprise is probably some of the quarterbacks going a little bit earlier than I expected. But other than that, I think just looking at the board here, probably one of my favorite picks. It might be a toss up. And as I was just saying, I was surprised by most of these picks, and looking at them here, it's kind of hard to decide. Do you actually have one on the top of your head before I go here? Because
I'm
I'm
gonna
kind of
be
scrambling
honest.
between a few guys here.
I liked. Are so you're looking for specific pick?
Yes, yes.
Ooh, specific pick. I really like. I think. I
It's hard. It's
realistically,
hard.
I'm eyeing. I really just a duo of picks, and that is pick 12. Just taking that CD Lamb and AJ Brown start is incredible.
Yeah,
So maybe not to hammer down one specific pick, but I feel like that one stands out just as a turn pick, since it's technically one pick.
yeah. And you know what? I think I found mine. I'm gonna butt in here. I really love a sneaky Team 10. I love what Team
Ooh,
10 did there. Started off with Diggs, who obviously had a little bit of a down year last year compared to where he was really being taken, I think. Um, but I love the pick. I love Chubb. I love Burrow. And then the sneaky Mixon Akers, I think, is really sneaky in the fourth, fifth round for running backs, especially the way that Akers kind of rebounded and had an end of the year last year where he kind of stood out. I really love those two picks, fourth, fifth round. That could potentially, even if Team 10 wanted to double down and say, do Diggs Adams or Diggs AJ or Amon Ross St. Brown, that would be a crazy 1-2 punch at running back that I'd be happy with for the year.
yeah,
And I really love the Burrow in there as well. So you know what? If I have to give my bunch, it's right there. It's Mixon and Acres. I really love that 1-2 punch, especially that late. That's some good value right there, man.
yeah. That fourth and fifth round pick is dangerous, especially when you've got Burrow, you've got Diggs, you've got Chubb, and you just fill in your RB2 and your flex right there.
Yeah,
You can coast through the rest of the draft with that.
yeah, that's gonna be my pick, and there's a lot others.
Oh yeah,
Obviously, like we talked about, we ran into a lot of surprises in this draft. Maybe one of the biggest surprises for me is how far Michael Pittman fell from last year,
yeah,
considering how high his hype was with Matt Ryan. Now he definitely did get a quarterback upgrade, and he fell about 3 rounds. That was a little bit of a surprise to me. I don't think he should be going in the 6th round. I know
yeah.
for a fact that's going to change once we get closer here, but
Him
yeah,
and
that was
Mike
that was probably
Evans.
one of the bigger surprises. Yeah, Mike Evans in the 6th round too. When has Mike Evans ever played with a good quarterback before Brady and not had 1,000 yards? Um, another big surprise, man.
Yeah, I think Evans is still floating. I think he's floating. I think he's just kind of him and Godwin are going to figure out where they're going to be drafted. I think those are question marks still just in the fantasy draft world. And I think guys that'll move up, kind of moving forward throughout the season, will be Ayuk. One,
Hmm.
because I love him, but because I think people are going to just fall more in love with him as the offseason goes on. And Tyler Lockett, I think a lot of just people are going to realize, like, wait a minute, this guy was RB 12 last or wide receiver 12 last year, and you can get him in the seventh.
And
No,
he does it every year, like you
every
mentioned.
year,
Yep.
and I think people are going to catch on to that, and he's a guy that's going to just maybe not skyrocket, but like kind of find his way into maybe a whole round earlier, or maybe just like late sixth.
Yeah, absolutely. And even with the Ayuk pick too, once the quarterback situation really gets
Yeah.
hammered down there and everybody knows what's going on, I guarantee he'll be bumped up a little bit as well. And even some of the rookie receivers that we mentioned towards the later round here, like Zay Flowers, you got Quentin Johnson from the Chargers. Like some of these rookie receivers, Rashee Rice, Jonathan Mingo, like I guarantee that they'll bump up as well. Even Jackson Smith, I think, is going
Yep.
to have a nice little role there. I'm a little bit surprised that he did go so close to Lockett. That was a little bit of surprise to me. I don't think that he's going to outperform Lockett this year,
No.
but I do think he'll have a nice role. So maybe Jackson Smith goes down a little bit from the seventh round, but I see a lot of these other rookie receivers bump it up, and there's always rookie receivers that come to play. So it's more so just about finding them out. And obviously, we're going to come back and we might do a mock in a week or 2 weeks, and
Yep.
this is going to look completely different as it should. So hopefully Dalvin Cook's on a team. Hopefully we know if Alvin Kamara is getting suspended or not.
Maybe DeAndre Hopkins finally signs.
Signs with the team. Maybe Fournette goes somewhere and doesn't take over a backfield, but takes away from someone's.
Yeah.
Same thing with Zeke. You know, washed up Zeke might go somewhere and take a few touchdowns away from someone. So
I oddly picture both of them winding up in Baltimore just because that's what has been taking place.
Baltimore is king at just stashing running backs, stashing them, and they always strive in that offense, that run first offense.
Yep.
So well, previous run first offense. We don't know now with this new OC. Apparently, this guy is more of a pass pro, passing type offense. So we'll see how that evolves with his offense with Lamar. That's going to be exciting to see. But yeah, lots and lots of changes, lots of surprises today. And I'm just glad to get going again, man. It was
Yeah, me
great to
too.
do this with you today and just to point out some things that we see now. And it's going to be so cool to revisit a draft board in a month or
Yep.
even beginning of August and just be like, wow, we took him in this round and we did that. What are we doing?
Yeah.
I can't wait, man.
I can't wait either. And we've got a whole summer of it. So, all right. Mike, it was a pleasure drafting with
Always a
you.
pleasure.
It was a pleasure to see where these guys are being drafted at. And it's incredible every year. You're jumping into these mocks, you're jumping into these drafts in June and being like, wait a minute, he's going there.
Mhm.
And just kind of digging into either the why or the how and all the fun stuff. And that's the journey we're happily going to be taking this summer. So,
Yeah.
beautiful 12-team PPR mock draft.
Beautiful. And let's stick to this, Kyle. What I want to do here is we're going to have this video posted. I want to take this draft board and compare it to our draft board in August. And let's have
We'll
some
do
fun looking at some of the bonehead decisions we made and
it.
some of the things that we're going to laugh about. I can't wait to see that too.
We're going to see a whole different draft board, and I know it.
Mm-hmm.
But thank you for tuning in. We are First Seed Fantasy, and we'll see you next time.
See you.